It starts quietly. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your heart jumps, your jaw tightens, and for a brief second, you're no longer present. You're caught in the whirlwind of reaction. Or maybe it's an offhand comment from a coworker. Careless, dismissive. It lingers longer than it should. You replay it during dinner, again before bed, and somehow it sticks to you like smoke clinging to clothes after a fire. The world has a way of getting under our skin. Not with force, but with subtle intrusions. Words, glances, outcomes beyond our control. They inch into our peace like water finding cracks in stone. But what if they didn't? What if nothing could affect you? Not because you turned cold, but because you became clear. This isn't about indifference. It's not about detaching from life or numbing yourself to feeling. Stoicism teaches something deeper. It invites us to engage with the world fully, to work, to love, to lose, to strive, but from a place that cannot be shaken. The Stoics believe that while we cannot control what happens, we can master how we respond. That quiet strength, that unwavering core, is cultivated deliberately through practice. And it begins with understanding one powerful truth. You are not what happens to you. You are how you choose to meet it. So in this journey, we'll explore 10 timeless ways to remain unaffected, not untouched, but unshaken. Like a tree that sways but does not break. Like a flame that flickers but does not go out. Let's begin. You wake up and immediately reach for your phone. A message from someone you care about. Left on read. No reply. Your stomach twists just a little. The mind rushes ahead, building stories in the silence. This is how it starts. The day hasn't even begun, but already something outside of you has stirred something within. A ripple, a crack, a question. Why do we let so much of our peace depend on others? The Stoics saw this as the first battlefield, the space between what happens and how we interpret it. Epictetus reminded his students often, it's not the event that disturbs you, but your judgment about the event. That silence in the morning, it doesn't mean rejection. The traffic jam isn't an attack. The missed opportunity is not a verdict on your worth. But your mind, if left unchecked, will convince you otherwise. So the first way to remain unaffected is this: guard your interpretation. You don't need to be a prisoner of your first reaction. In fact, you rarely should be. The Stoics trained themselves to pause, not to repress, but to reassess, to observe the surge of emotion, and in that observation, reclaim choice. This isn't easy, especially not in a world that moves fast and rewards outrage. But mastery begins small. Start with one question. Is this within my control? If not, you let it go. If yes, you choose your response with care, like a craftsman selecting the right tool. This is not weakness, it's presence. It's power without noise. Imagine how different your life could be if you reclaimed just that. The right to choose your meaning instead of inheriting the most dramatic one. The world would remain the same, but you would not. The headlines would still scream, people would still disappoint. But inside you would carry stillness. And in that stillness, no insult, delay, or rejection could find a place to live. A friend forgets your birthday. No call, no message. You remember every year for them. So this feels like a betrayal. Or maybe it's something smaller. They cancel plans. They don't ask how you've been. You start to feel unappreciated, even invisible. But here's the truth. Most people aren't trying to hurt you. They're just distracted by their own storms. And so the second way to remain unaffected is this: expect less from others and more from yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. That may sound harsh, but it wasn't a complaint. It was a form of preparation. The Stoics believed we suffer more from our expectations than from reality itself. We expect others to remember, to care, to show up in the exact way we hope. And when they don't, we feel wounded. But that's not always fair, to them or to ourselves. So shift the focus. Instead of expecting others to treat you a certain way, expect yourself to respond with dignity and grace. It's not about becoming a doormat. It's about recognizing that your peace doesn't have to hinge on someone else's behavior. Be kind, because it aligns with your values, not because it guarantees kindness in return. Be loyal even when others forget, not for approval, but because it's who you are. When you lower your expectations of others, not out of bitterness but wisdom, you stop being surprised by their flaws. You begin to see them with clearer eyes. Compassion replaces disappointment. And when you raise your expectations of yourself, you build something no one can take from you: self-respect. You stop chasing emotional debts. You stop keeping score. And slowly, the balance shifts. You become the source of your own steadiness, no longer swayed by broken promises, no longer weakened by forgetfulness. Your calm becomes independent, and that kind of calm is unshakable. The email doesn't come. The opportunity you hope for passes to someone else. You gave it your all. You showed up early, stayed late, poured your energy into something that never bore fruit, and the mind starts to whisper, what was the point? Disappointment creeps in not just from failure, but from unmet expectations, from believing effort guarantees outcome. But Stoicism cuts through this illusion with one sharp principle: focus only on what you can control. Epictetus said it simply: some things are up to us and some are not. That one sentence, if truly lived, has the power to eliminate half of your suffering. You control your effort, not the outcome. You control your preparation, not the applause. You control your words, not how they're received. But how often do we invert this? We obsess over likes and recognition. We play scenes in our heads of how things should have gone. We spend hours rehearsing arguments that may never happen. And all the while, the present moment slips away. The Stoic chooses differently. They work with diligence, not attachment. They care deeply, but release easily. Because when you live with clear boundaries between effort and outcome, you liberate yourself from the chaos of the world's responses. You stop bargaining with the universe. You simply do what's right because it's right, not because it promises reward. Imagine the freedom in that. To give your best and walk away satisfied, regardless of what comes. To speak your truth without demanding to be understood. To love fully, even if imperfectly received. This is not indifference, it's clarity. And clarity brings peace. Because when you focus only on what you can control, the world may still move unpredictably, but you no longer move with it. You remain grounded, steady, unaffected. The room is quiet, but your thoughts are loud. You replay the mistake from yesterday, the thing you said, the thing you didn't. You wonder what they're thinking about you now. You scroll through their profile, searching for signs, for reassurance, for something to quiet the noise. But it doesn't help. It never does. Because the fourth way to remain unaffected is this: learn to detach from the opinions of others. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And nowhere is this more true than in our obsession with how we are perceived. We imagine judgment in the silence. We interpret tone in the text. We read between lines that were never written. Why? Because deep down, many of us were taught to measure our worth by how others react to us. But Stoicism teaches something radically freeing. You are not responsible for how others see you. You are responsible for how you live. This doesn't mean being careless or rude. It means you stop outsourcing your self-respect. You don't chase validation like a dog chasing a car. You don't twist yourself to fit into everyone's frame. You live from your own center, grounded, present, and clear. Here's the truth. People will misunderstand you. They'll judge you unfairly. They'll project their own wounds onto your actions. That's not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of what they carry. So let them have their stories while you write your own. Detach doesn't mean disconnect. You can still love people, care for them, honor their presence, but you no longer let their passing thoughts define your identity. You can stand in a room full of disapproval and still feel calm, because your worth isn't on trial. That's power, that's freedom, and that's the kind of presence that can walk into any unaffected. You're scrolling late at night. Everyone seems ahead. A friend just bought a house. Another launched a business. Someone else got married again. You're happy for them, or at least you want to be. But beneath the surface, something stirs. A quiet question. Am I falling behind? And with that, comparison tightens its grip. But the fifth way to remain unaffected is this: stop measuring your life against others. The Stoics warned of envy, not because it's morally wrong, but because it's corrosive. It takes your attention away from what truly matters: your own path, your own growth, your own values. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others." He knew how easy it was to drift into other people's narratives, to forget that we're each called to something unique. You weren't meant to live their story. You weren't meant to hit the same milestones in the same order with the same timeline. Yet we scroll and we compare. Not to learn, but to judge ourselves. And that judgment becomes a thief. It steals joy, gratitude, clarity. Stoicism offers a different view. What if your journey is not late, but right on time? What if the struggles you face are exactly the ones designed to shape your strength? What if success isn't something visible, but something internal? The quiet pride of staying true to your principles, the peace of knowing you didn't compromise who you are just to get ahead. When you stop comparing, you start noticing. You notice your own progress, how you're more patient than last year, more thoughtful, more resilient. You notice beauty in the simple, in your morning coffee, in the silence after a long day. You notice yourself, not as lacking, but as evolving. This doesn't mean you stop learning from others. It means you stop using their lives as a measuring stick for your own. You walk your path with presence, with pride. And in doing so, you become untouchable by the noise of the world. The plan was perfect until it wasn't. You mapped everything out, took all the right steps, did your part. But something changed. The market shifted, someone backed out, life threw a curveball you didn't see coming. Now you're left holding a future that no longer exists, and grief sets in, not just for what you lost, but for what you imagined. The sixth way to remain unaffected is this: release attachment to specific outcomes. Stoicism doesn't teach us to stop caring. It teaches us to care wisely, to engage fully but without clinging. Epictetus said, "When you are delighted with anything, remember to say to yourself, 'I am delighted with a mortal thing.'" In other words, whatever you hold, a goal, a plan, a person, hold it with open hands, because everything in life is borrowed, and sooner or later it must return. That doesn't mean you stop dreaming. It means you dream with awareness. You give your best to the process, not because it guarantees the result you want, but because the process itself shapes who you are. Letting go of outcomes doesn't make you passive. It makes you adaptable. When life changes course, you don't fall apart. You adjust your sails. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this?" Because here's the truth. Some of the best things that will happen to you were never part of your plan. And some of the worst things will become the seeds of your deepest growth. But only if you let go. Only if you stop resisting reality and start working with it. Letting go of outcomes doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means raising your inner stability, so that whether things go your way or not, you remain the same. Clear, present, grounded. You stop bargaining with the future and start trusting yourself in the now. This is not detachment from life. It's attachment to peace. The room is filled with chatter. Opinions fly back and forth. Someone challenges your view, maybe even mocks it. Your heart rate rises. You feel the urge to correct them, to prove you're right, to defend your name. You're not angry, not yet, but you're close. That moment, that heat rising, is a signal. And it brings us to the seventh way to remain unaffected. Master the art of emotional discipline. The Stoics never taught emotional suppression. They taught emotional clarity. Seneca warned that uncontrolled emotions like a storm destroy more than they protect. He believed anger, fear, and anxiety are not enemies to avoid, but messengers to understand. What makes you flare up? What makes you flare up? What stirs your insecurity? What triggers your defensiveness? Behind every relief, a value, an assumption, or a fear. The Stoic examines this, not to judge it, but to know it. Because what you understand, you can master. You don't have to react. You can wait. You don't have to argue. You can listen. You don't have to match their tone, you can set your own. This is the work, the deep, quiet work of building a fortress within. And it starts with space, a gap between stimulus and response. You feel the pull to act impulsively, and instead you breathe. You choose presence over reactivity, clarity over chaos. This doesn't mean you become emotionless, it means your emotions stop owning you. The Stoic doesn't aim to never feel, he aims to never be ruled. Imagine walking into conflict and staying composed, hearing criticism and staying grounded, facing pressure and responding with purpose, not panic. That's not just self-control, that's self-respect. And like any art, it's built through practice. You fall short, but you try again. You observe and you adjust, until one day your peace becomes less fragile, your reactions become less automatic, and your presence becomes unmistakably calm. That is power. Silent, steady, unaffected. The schedule is full. Tasks line up like soldiers, meetings, deadlines, messages waiting for replies. You move fast, check boxes, stay efficient. But inside, something feels off. There's no space to breathe, no moment to pause, just motion. And this brings us to the 8th way to remain unaffected. Create stillness within your day. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire of his time. Yet in his journals, he wrote about silence, solitude, and inner peace. If he could make time to reflect, so can we. Stillness is not the absence of action. It's the presence of awareness. It's stepping back, even for a minute, to realign with yourself, to ask what truly matters right now. We often think the solution to overwhelm is doing more, organizing better, optimizing every moment. But sometimes the most powerful act is to stop, to close your eyes, to return to your breath. That pause, simple as it sounds, breaks the chain of reactivity. It reminds you that you are not the pace of your life. You are the presence beneath it. Stillness doesn't require a retreat or a meditation cushion. It lives in small choices. Taking a slow walk without your phone, drinking your coffee without distraction, ending the day with quiet reflection instead of endless scrolling. These moments may seem insignificant, but they change everything. They teach your nervous system that peace is available. They teach your mind that urgency is often an illusion. They teach your soul that presence is power. The world will continue to spin. Deadlines will remain. But you can move slower. You can choose depth over speed. You can be still inside, even when everything outside is moving. This stillness is not laziness. It's strategy. It clears the fog. It sharpens your focus. It strengthens your spirit. Because the person who can remain calm in a storm is the one who ends up steering the ship. You're tired, not just physically, soul tired. You've been carrying burdens in silence, taking care of everyone else, saying yes when you meant no, smiling when you wanted to break. You keep pushing forward, thinking strength means endurance. But the 9th way to remain unaffected is this: honor your boundaries without guilt. Stoicism is often mistaken for self-denial, but true Stoic strength is not about enduring everything. It's about choosing what you'll endure and why. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself, and self-mastery begins with knowing your limits and protecting them. Boundaries are not walls to keep others out. They're the walls of a temple, sacred space to protect what's within. Without them, everything enters. Noise, obligation, manipulation, and soon you forget where you end and the world begins. So you must reclaim that edge. You don't owe anyone your time, your energy, your peace, especially not at the cost of your well-being. It's okay to say no, to rest, to take a step back from what drains you. Not because you're selfish, but because you're wise enough to preserve what matters. The Stoic lives in alignment, and alignment requires clarity. What are your values? What kind of life are you building? What kind of person do you want to be? If something or someone consistently pulls you away from that, it's your duty to step back. Yes, people may not understand. Yes, you may disappoint them. But your peace is not a product of their comfort. It's the result of living honestly, clearly, and courageously. Every time you honor your boundary, you tell the world, I know my worth. You remind yourself, I choose peace, not performance. And from that place, you move through life with presence, not pressure, respected, not reactive, still, not swallowed. You're not meant to carry everything, just what truly aligns with your soul. You've been hurt. They broke your trust, said one thing, did another, promised loyalty, delivered betrayal. And even though time has passed, the sting hasn't. You smile, move on, keep busy. But somewhere inside it still echoes, not loudly, but persistently. This is the weight of resentment, subtle, heavy, and draining. The 10th way to remain unaffected is this: release resentment through the courage to forgive. Forgiveness in Stoic thought is not softness. It is strength at its most silent. It's not an act of surrender, but of reclaiming control over your own peace. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, when someone does you wrong, you must understand they did what they believed was right at the time. That doesn't make it okay, but it does remind you. Their actions are about them. Your response is about you. Holding on to anger is like tying yourself to the past and expecting to move forward freely. It doesn't protect you. It limits you. It makes you carry something that does nothing but pull you back. The Stoic approach is clear. Feel it, face it, then let it go. Not for their sake, but for your clarity, for your health, for the weight you no longer want on your shoulders. Forgiveness doesn't require permission. You don't need their understanding, their regret, or their apology. All you need is the willingness to stop letting what hurt you continue to live inside you. That's the quiet revolution. To let go, not because it was fair, but because you refuse to give your inner peace to someone who didn't value it in the first place. To choose softness, not because you are weak, but because you are unbreakable. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It simply says, this no longer controls my future. That is Stoic freedom. That is dignity without noise. That is strength without armor. And when you make that choice to release, to rise, to be whole again, you don't become less. You become untouched, unaffected,